now I think we can go ahead with the program, and the next presenter would be Professor Ahlbom, who is going to speak about the epidemiology of EMF. Anders, briefly, please.
Yes. Should I be here? Or here?
Yeah, it's hard to switch from here to slides.
Okay, fine. So I'm going to be brief and try to be to the point and provide my key points from this morning. And to remember what I plan to say, I have some slides. First, my starting point is that there is actually no particular reason to suspect that mobile telephony carries any risks to health. From my point of view, the reason for the research is a general concern that a new technology that spreads very, very quickly around the globe could include something that we don't fully understand, and if that's the case, we want to discover it as quickly as possible. I like to compare that to post-marketing surveillance of pharmaceutical drugs, which are often treated in the same way. The thing we know about these types of electromagnetic fields is that they are heating tissues, and the everyday experience we have is from the microwave ovens. But we also know that this effect is protected well by the exposure guidelines. So the question is whether there are effects that are way below the levels of the guidelines, and way below, and if there are effects that are happening because of other mechanisms than the heating. Despite this lack of a specific hypothesis, science has done a big job, I think, and a good job with respect to brain tumors. And we have now seen research on brain tumors for more than a decade. And my understanding is that these studies, they are done very seriously, and they have become better and better over the time because people have learned. And my understanding is that there are few raised risks that are observed in these studies, and there is little reason for concern. And we also have this slide here, which indicates what the national brain tumor trends look like. And it's clear that if you can look more detailed into this one, but it doesn't indicate that brain tumor really increases brain tumor, but mobile phones increases brain tumor risk, but of course it would normally have been visible very, very clearly already, even though we don't know what would happen if things were delayed with many years. We wouldn't really know, of course. So this leads us to some questions. What can you say about the longer time periods than the ones that have been studied so far, which are now in the order of 15 years of latency or so? Could there be groups that are particularly sensitive, and who knows? And what about other diseases? There are a huge number of diseases. This is brain tumors, and we have looked at a couple of types of brain tumor, but there are many other diseases that haven't been looked at yet. And of course one can never exclude that something is going on there. One could not exclude the possibility of sensitive groups or the possibility of very long-term effects or effects on other disease. But I would argue that there is at present no particular reason to suspect that there is something going on. And experimental research hasn't shown us anything yet that has been established other than the effect of heating. Looking at the research, it increased in volume around the turn of the century, and it increased slowly and then was very active for some time. Looking at the number of publications that's coming out, and looking at the research groups that are active, and looking at what we know about studies in pipeline, it's possible that we are in for a decline in the research volume. Now, we do know that the European Commission is funding some research, so it will not stop completely. Then what I would expect and hope for research in the future is that these cohorts and this population that are established and that have data on phone use, etc., that they are being monitored continuously for the future, because it's something that is logical to do and not overly expensive or complicated, and just as a safety factor. So I'm hoping that's going to happen, and I think it will happen. Actually, we do know that there are groups that have such data that are doing this, and there is one such group in this country, and there is one group in my country who work together with some other groups, and we will pursue this. This is called the Cosmos study. And then I also think that science should continue on the more basic level, because scientists are curious, and they will continue to be curious, and they will look at many aspects of these fields and the interaction with the genes and with DNA and with various aspects of the human system, and that is going to continue, and it will compete with other interests that the scientists have and that the funders have, and ideas that are promising and that move forward will be pursued, other ideas will not be pursued. And finally, I would like to comment on risk management and the exercise of the precautionary principle. And my point there is that this is not the scientist's business. Of course, the science feeds into this, and this, of course, the very important information for risk managers is what scientists produce. But this is done by other groups and the scientists, and there is absolutely no automatic way from science to risk management, because there are so many other things that are important in risk management and in precautionary principles that have to do with values in the society, that have to do with what the people in the society thinks and what they are concerned about, and it has to do with technical disruptions. If you assume that mobile telephony would not be used, some people would perhaps think that would be a great thing, but I am quite convinced that the majority would be upset. And the same thing with Wi-Fi in schools, etc. There are some who would like it, others would be very upset. And this is something for decision makers to think about and to discuss. And whatever they do, I think it has to be transparent on what basis one is doing whatever one is doing. I think this is my few comments. I'm, of course, very willing to respond to questions.
Okay, thank you, Anders. Okay. Any questions to Professor Ahlbom? Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Tuula Aatikainen, journalist of Tekniikka ja talous. It's a new technique Finland.
Okay.
So, my question is not really intellectual, but are smartphones more dangerous than the conventional?
If smartphones are more dangerous than the conventional phones, is that what you say?
Are they more dangerous, the smartphones?
I am not sure that any of them is dangerous at all. We do know that, what we do know is that modern phones typically have a new technology that reduces exposure. Which is probably a good thing if you are concerned about the exposure. And the more modern, the lower the exposure. I mean, the new system used is much more efficient and effective, so it doesn't require the same type of power for communication.
Some studies have suggested that there's a more genotoxic effect, that they are more toxic, not because the power is less, because the power of the smartphone is in fact much less, but because the signal modulation is more disruptive. And we don't know, is the short answer. We don't know if today's smartphones are better or worse for health. And we need to find out through the kind of research program that needs to get done.
But I think it's been interesting to, one should remember that we don't know if any of them is dangerous at all.
We just,
Which I think should be the starting point.
but we do know that they have biological effects because that kind of radiation is being used now to treat cancer, and I'll talk about that in a moment.
Okay, other questions, comments? So I think that one thing which always sort of I think pays off that is that the longer the distance between the head and the phone, the lower the exposure.
Yeah.
So that's a very easy way of decreasing, if one is concerned, decreasing the exposure. Hands-off tools, especially for children, I think that's a precautionary action.